Check, check. There we go. Thank you. All right. So it is 2:00. Looks like we have everybody here. We are social distanced up on the dais and as well as the audience. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our special meeting. Today is Wednesday, May 19th. It's 2 p.m. And this is a special meeting for our fiscal year 21-22 budget workshop. So with that, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order at 2:00. Madam Clerk, would you call roll, please?
Councilmember Dynas?
Here.
Councilmember Carwin?
Here.
Councilmember Leesmeyer?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sobek?
Here.
And Mayor Zimmerman?
I'm here. And so if we could, I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem Sobek if she'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Would you join me as we salute our nation's wonderful flag? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right, it moves us to our agenda item 4.1. That's our fiscal year budget, and I'll turn it over to the city manager to introduce the staff that's going to present.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members. We are at the, not the end, but the culmination of a very tedious and long and complicated process of developing the yearly budget. You see a lot of staff members here. Every one of these department heads had a role in shaping, designing, and proposing the proposed budget. So they're here to answer any questions you may have. But at this time, we have a very exciting, good news and a very good presentation, and we're going to turn it over to Wendy and Margarita. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, staff, and citizens. Today we will be presenting our proposed fiscal year 21-22 budget. We will take a comprehensive look at the general fund, staffing, capital projects, and police. I'd like to thank all the departments. As the city manager said, everybody had a hand in this, worked hard, came together and to present this. I'd really like to thank Margarita Cornejo for all the number crunching she has done into the late hours and wee morning hours. And we'd also like this to be an open discussion. So as I go along, if there are questions, go ahead and ask them. And I'd also like to open it for staff that if I'm, on a slide and I forget to point something out, or if there's something that they feel like would add, to have them speak up also. Menifee, the final frontier. Menifee is unlike many other places around us. We're enjoying growth and improvements. We're the 4th fastest growing city in California. We have increased commercial development, increased residential development, increased property values, and increased sales tax base. We've hit the big times. Just this last January, we hit 999,686 in population base, just short of 100,000. We will hit that in the next few months. And with that comes extra funding in some areas, gas tax measure A, SLESF, COPS. This is the budget of the Starship Menifee. And our mission is to accomplish the goals of the strategic plan, reduce police response times, reduce road complaint response times, get CIP projects shovel-ready, address traffic issues, support high land development workloads, support increased park acreage and right-of-way maintenance, provide sufficient support staff to accomplish these goals. To boldly go where no city has gone before. So to get a little more serious about the numbers. The 4 main steps in preparing and implementing the annual budget is to analyze current economic conditions, forecast revenues and expenditures, prioritize spending, and strategically plan the use of our resources. Staff spent time analyzing the current economic conditions. As updated in our mid-year budget presentation, Menifee didn't see the revenue loss that we had originally thought we would see. Instead, our revenues have continued, but at a slower growth rate than before the pandemic. Since the last budget was adopted, many things have changed. They've come out with a vaccination, businesses are starting to open, people are getting more active and being outside, and children are returning to the classrooms. The impacts that are specific to the city of Menifee are varied. Staff does continue to partially do remote working while still handling increased development and a robust CIP program. City Hall has opened back up to the public with appointments and reduced counter hours, and residential and commercial construction continues to grow. The things that staff takes into consideration when formulating the budget are we project revenues, we look at projected populations, projected staffing needs, and projected new economic development. And some of the sources that we use are our consultant HDL companies, the County of Riverside, State of California, other agencies, and historical data and trends. HDL, a leading industry leader and the city's consultant for sales and property taxes, gives us their budget forecasts for sales and property tax projections. For the general fund for sales tax, the projection is coming in at $9.4 million for the fiscal year 21-22. For the quality of life measure, formerly known as Measure DD, that revenue projection is coming in at about $14.7 million. And for property tax projections, the secured property tax is almost $8.5 million, and the structural fire property tax is about $7.6 million. So budget assumptions. Staff began preparing the budget in January and finalized the revenue projections by about the end of April. The projections that we have come up with for revenue and transfers in from the grant fund are $59,885,280 for the general fund and $14,776,000 for the quality of life measure fund. So the general fund reporting. Always keep in mind when we're talking in the next 3 or 4 slides that the general fund includes general fund and the quality of life. Oh, there you go. So for staffing. New staff requests from the departments were due to finance in January. We had our first review of those requests with the city manager in February. Then, after all the department operating budgets were submitted and reviewed and their proposed revenues were reviewed, finance staff again met with the city manager's office and ran through all of the requests, justifications, department org charts, and current hiring costs along with future budget impacts and the city's ability to sustain the funding for those positions before finalizing the staffing requests that are being presented to you today. The personnel requests being submitted address what staff sees as critical areas for reaching the city's goal of building a safe, thriving, and premier place to be. Just a side note, that most of these positions would have been presented last fiscal year if it had not been for the pandemic. Staff has addressed the following critical areas in staffing. In the police department, we are addressing staffing to reduce response times. In the Public Works Department, we're adding staffing and equipment to address street maintenance and illegal dumping response times. In CIP, we have an almost $28 million CIP plan, and we are adding staffing to prepare to be shovel-ready for grants, federal infrastructure funding, or any other available funding In traffic, we're adding staff to address citywide traffic needs while reducing contract costs. In land development, we're adding staff to enhance customer service for the continued heavy workload demands. In parks and right-of-way, we're adding staff to prepare to accept an almost additional 25-plus new acres of parks and right-of-way maintenance. And we're also proposing to add support staff to help with all of those additional positions and also for the demands from constituents, vendors, and developers. The 21-22 position requested are here in front of you. Staff is requesting 24.5 new positions, along with taking a part-time IT position and making it a full position for a total of 25 FTEs. With 10 departments here having staffing requests, these positions truly address current citywide staffing needs. Staff is also requesting that 6 positions be reclassified, as seen here.
I got a question for Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Yeah, going back to page 15.
Oh.
On the staffing positions.
Yes.
I'd like to just get some information on this. I'd like to ask the city clerk's office. They have a management and an analyst that they're proposing. And I just would like to go down this list and ask each of the departments why they need this position. So if we can start with the city clerks.
Yes, so I requested a management analyst because I need somebody for budget purposes. I don't have anybody besides myself that does that in the department. I'd also like to add some programs, which was requested before, passports. We're going to be doing a shredding event this weekend, just additional programs that the city clerk's office can offer to the community.
Okay,
If I might add, Sarah is one of the few departments left that does not have the analyst position to help with budgeting, purchasing, contracts, and things like that.
and how are you being able to keep up with public records requests?
Yes, that is always a need. They fluctuate, requests fluctuate, but yes, that's one thing that we are also working on. We've been working on it for the last couple of years, is centralizing all of the city's records into one repository that we can put on our public portal for access. And that is a big project, to go back from the beginning of incorporation and all of our records to get in one location.
Okay, all right. Thank you for answering that. If we can go to the city manager's office, there's another management analyst that's being requested.
So the positions requested to augment the communications department, as you know, we hired a PIO, and since then, it is our intent to begin the second phase of our communication plan, which is to create a PEG channel and also create more community programming with a potential to eventually come up with Menifee TV so that we can produce city videos and city government type of videos to educate not only the public but businesses and things like that. So that is going to require us to be able to have and connect and communicate with a PEG channel and develop the relationship with either Frontier or Spectrum. They are requesting that we commit to 20 hours to 30 hours of community programming a week, and so we need to be able to continue that second phase of programming.
Okay, that's great, because I know our residents have requested that, so that will be a great addition. Okay, community development is asking for an associate planner.
No, it's working. Yes. So the additional associate planner will help to round out the planning department team. This position is meant to augment both current planning, where we continue to see an increase in development activity, and as well to support our advanced planning division with our zoning code, general plan, all the advanced planning activities that we do, as well as provide additional support to our CDBG program. As you know, our CDBG program has expanded, especially last year with all of the COVID funds. And then we've also taken on permanent local housing assistant funds grants, which would provide for down payment assistance. So there continues to be expanded duties in the department, and this will eliminate the need for any contract planning services. So we would keep all that work in-house.
So will you be able to eliminate some contract planning?
We, in the last 6 months or so, have not needed to utilize a contract planner for project reviews. So this would help us to maintain that. You know, as we see peaks in development activity, there's sometimes that need to stay on track for project deadlines, but this should round out the team to keep it all in-house.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, our community service department, you've asking for 2.5 positions.
Yes, good afternoon, City Council. As mentioned in an earlier slide, we're anticipating that we're going to have up to 5 new parks in the next fiscal year. There's Talavera Park on the northeast side of town, which is actually completed with construction. We should be annexing that one in the next few months. Under construction right now, we have the Underwood Park, which is very close to that one. Remington Park, those 2 parks, Underwood Park's 9 acres, Remington Park's another 5-acre park. Then also recently approved for design from the City Council is the Evans Park pump track that we're working on the design and hopefully done with construction this calendar year. And then there's one more park that is being built. It's the last park in the Audie Murphy Ranch area. So with all those new parks coming on board, and then also over the last 2 years, we've acquired 50,000 square feet of new right-of-way landscaping that's under our maintenance purview, but haven't had any staff. So that's the real need for these 2 more staff members to keep up with all these new park developments and all the new right-of-way landscape coming in. And the part-time office aide is to provide support in the department for all the work orders that are generated from all these parks, and whether it be graffiti or park maintenance or anything with the restrooms, just to help with the tracking and the administrative support for the maintenance staff.
Okay, all right, so that would be a part-time position.
Yes, the
Office
office aide would be the part-time, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, to our engineering department, principal engineer, associate engineer, traffic technician.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. Yes, so our request for the principal engineer would be to allow that person to assist with the daily business operations of the land development division. And these are in addition to the regular duties of a principal engineer. So as you know, right now the land development between myself and the next person below me is a senior engineer who is also a working supervisor or working position. So the addition of the principal engineer is to assist, like I said, with the daily business operation of land development, review staff engineers' project entitlement and final engineering projects, as well as provide technical assistance to staff engineers and inspection teams. This person will also attend a lot of the DRCs and the regional meetings that the city is supposed to go to in order to take advantage of opportunities that may be out there for the city. And with the addition of the principal engineer, there's an opportunity also to reduce some of the contracts, because right now the position of the principal engineer is being supplemented or augmented by a consultant. For the associate engineer, this position is being requested to help manage and administer the urban stormwater management programs for the city, which is currently being performed by consultants and also one of our senior engineer, staff engineer. The duties of the associate engineer will also include representing the city in regional watershed meetings. As you know, the city of Menifee is actually in two watersheds, the Santa Ana River watershed, and then a small portion of the city is also in the Santa Margarita River watershed. So in order for us to be fully knowledgeable of the different things that are going on in those different watershed, we really have to have representation in those meetings. And right now, those are being performed by consultants. So the associate engineer would also help augment the contracts that we have for inspection of businesses, industrial businesses, and other businesses, which are actually mandated by our permit to be inspected periodically. Like some of them are inspected once a year, some are twice a year, or once in the lifetime of the permit. Hiring this position would also provide an opportunity for us to reduce some of our contracts that are being done right now by consultants for representing us to the different watershed meetings and for performing inspections that are related to NPDES.
So on those two positions, thank you, Yolanda.
Sure.
On those two positions you mentioned, but that both would reduce contracts and consultants. Would that
Correct.
be a savings to the city then?
When we look at the number, the overall bottom line number would result in some savings for the city.
Okay, all right.
Then the traffic technician position is being requested because as we know, there's only one traffic engineer that we have on staff, and there are a lot of different things coming into this one traffic engineer to perform, different requests from different sources. So the traffic technician would assist the traffic engineer with field installations of different traffic signal and communication projects out there. It will also assist with troubleshooting field components, assist with the operation and monitoring of upcoming City Traffic Management Center, or TMC. So once that comes in, we do need a technician to assist our traffic engineer to monitor that. That position would also perform additional field work overseen by the traffic engineer and continue to address the different requests that are coming into our My City app. Right now, we're getting an average of 6 requests through the My City app, which most of the time are actually resulting to work orders.
Would that be an average a day of 6
It's average a month,
a month?
right?
Okay.
The traffic technician, when hired, would also provide an opportunity to reduce some of our consultant contracts, and potentially allow for us to probably review our contract with the Riverside County Transportation. As you know, our traffic signal maintenance and operation are contracted out to the Riverside County. We have a contract of an average of about $200,000, I believe. So with the traffic technician being on board, there is also an opportunity for that position to perform some of those duties and potentially reduce our contract with the county.
Okay. I can see the-
Yolanda,
see the need.
I apologize. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit more
Sure.
than staff's already been put on the spot. But with respects to the traffic engineer deal, it sounds to me like there's a lot of extra stuff that comes along with having somebody do all that signal maintenance. We have to have a truck to deal with the lights and somebody educated to deal with all the equipment. I'm really struggling to understand why we want to sever that contract with the county.
Because right now, I don't think we have the equipment to be able to perform what the county is doing. Like, for example, we don't have the lift, the bucket lift, to
Precisely, that's my point. Why do we need to sever the contract? They already have everything. Why do we want to go a different direction? This is my question.
Why do we have a separate contract with them?
Why do we want to go a different direction?
Oh, a different direction. I'm
Right.
sorry.
If they
Yeah.
already have everything, now we're kind of backing ourselves into a position where, okay, now we got to go buy a cherry picker. We got to buy this. We got to buy that. There's just a lot more things that come along with it.
Well, it's not really being proposed to go a different direction. It's just a an opportunity for probably the city to take a look at some of the minor duties that the county is doing that potentially a traffic technician can also do.
Okay.
Mr. City Manager, do you want to add something?
Yeah,
I was
just
just-
reduce the
I
contract,
was
not
just gonna-
totally eliminate it.
Yeah, the intent is not to move away from the county contract, but it is to start paving the way for eventually, one day, the city will need to maintain all those things. And right now, there's a lot of work orders that come in for traffic timing, traffic signal timing. They need to be analyzed, and creating a work order for the county to go out there and do it, the bills are kind of high. So once we begin to have the traffic operations center downstairs, and we have, most of the traffic signals online, so we're going to be able to monitor all the traffic signals and then make adjustments to the flow of the traffic so that we can speed traffic faster. That needs to be monitored. So that's kind of our hope, to have that position monitor that. In addition to, we have one traffic engineer, and oftentimes that engineer has to go do site visits to look at complaints from people, and that leaves nobody back here to monitor the signals.
So we have Rob and Nick. with
So,
traffic.
so the consultant, Nick, is actually not an operations type of traffic engineer. He's more of a modeling for traffic studies that come in from
So
project,
development.
for development, yes. So that's
From
the traffic
development,
studies,
yeah.
they review traffic studies.
Okay.
So there's an analysis component, but there's an operations component. Everything that's out there, all the signals are out there, need maintenance, and we need to track them.
So, sorry, I mean, we kind of opened a can of worms. So if Nick's doing the development stuff, what's Rob doing?
Operations.
Operations. What is operations? Explain to me operations that's not already been explained by a technician.
So we have, how many traffic signals do we have?
We do have, right now, I think close to 100 traffic signals.
Traffic signals.
Yeah.
All those signals are controlled by computers and a system. And sometimes systems go down, and sometimes, our city has been developing and evolving, and sometimes we don't have the proper traffic mitigation out there to respond to the added traffic. So we're having to send Rob out there to go look at the situation and do traffic counts to analyze whether we need to add a traffic signal, we need to add a stop sign, and based on the number of complaints. So from an operations perspective, we're constantly checking to make sure that the traffic, as it's evolving around town, is being watched.
Yeah.
Traffic trips and things like that.
And if I could also add, Armando, so our traffic engineer, Rob, is actually being pulled a lot for providing assistance to construction. Like, for example, if CIP has a traffic signal being constructed out there, even though we have contractors doing those, Rob is the one doing the inspection for the striping or any other catwalks that may be associated with the construction of the traffic signals. And additionally, for land development, when the project goes to construction team for construction, Rob is also the person that they pull to inspect some of those stripings associated with signals and with the street improvements.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I apologize for putting
It's
names
okay.
on the spot.
No,
It
it's
helps me-
okay.
It's
helps
all
me
good
go in the right
education.
place.
Mayor Pro Tem, would you keep taking us down the list?
Yes, finance, please.
Yes, finance is requesting a purchasing and contract specialist, and this is to help Margarita and her team With the increase in RFPs, contracts, purchase orders, with the opening of the police department, that's basically just ballooned that whole purchasing part of finance. Did you want to add?
No, that is correct. You know, we understand that to provide the best service to our community, we have to partner with vendors and, you know, be it because we are subject to public contracting code for construction projects, or, you know, when we need to do something more complex like architectural services for a fire station or a Lazy Creek project. So we're averaging about 3 to 4 RFPs a month, and contracts are close to 2 to 300, and that's just a reflection of the volume of activity that we have. So in the past 2 years or so, we really have put a lot of effort in centralizing our purchasing activities, because that's really what's going to get us to get the best service, best quality service, and the best pricing on that. So this would really augment that division and that function, and continuing to serve as an internal support service to our operating departments. And then not to that position in itself, but I did also want to say that for the 2 community services maintenance workers, those are actually paid and funded by not general fund funds, but special districts, LLMDs, and CFDs. So there are funding mechanisms specifically in place to fund those types of positions. And we'll have the same situation with at least half of the street maintenance worker later on in the list.
Great, good to know. And yeah, I didn't think of that. The police department has created more work for you. Okay, fleet and equipment supervisor.
We have a very robust fleet that has actually grown quite a bit because of the police department. We have 43 vehicles that are used by our maintenance staff, our inspectors, all of our regular city staff, and then there's 55 police fleet and 31 pieces of equipment. And then, as you can see, we're adding even more to the police department, which is, you know, more vehicles to maintain. And right now we only have a senior fleet technician and a fleet technician. So we have 2 people to maintain all of this equipment. So the supervisor would be a working supervisor position, so a 3rd person to help us maintain all this equipment. Right now we're only recommending 1 position because the fleet is fairly new, but down the line we'll probably come back and ask for more positions eventually.
Does it actually save, like on fleet, do in-house and not, and maybe, I know you have cars that you can take to a dealership or to a service area.
It's a balance. It's also the speed on how fast we can get cars out. Definitely with the police cars, we were trying to get them back in operation as soon as possible. So if we have to send it out to a dealer to get fixed, that can take a couple of days versus, you know, a half a day if we had the staff in-house to do it.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. IT?
Good afternoon, Council. IT is requesting 1.5 positions. The half-time or elevating the part-time technician to a full-time position will allow me to rotate 1 person through each of our 3 major population areas, if I can use that example. Instead of them just being physically here in this building, we can now rotate through PD, through community services, through the larger areas, and provide a closer to acceptable level of service. For the IT analyst position, we currently have just shy of 60 separate major enterprise applications that we're trying to support, currently with 2 people. If I could put that in a little bit of perspective, that's like asking your helicopter engine mechanic to take care of that helicopter. Tomorrow they're going to be working on that 747. The next day they're going to be working on the Caterpillar tractor. The next day they're going to be working on your Ferrari. Can we do it? Yes. Can we do it really well and a really quality professional job? It's becoming very difficult to do that. So this would allow us to separate and have essentially 20 different applications supported by 1 person, as well as do some cross-training, again, to begin providing closer to acceptable levels of service.
Okay, thank you. Menifee PD.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sobek. So we want to add a lieutenant, police lieutenant. Currently, we have 1 lieutenant that oversees investigations. And code enforcement, we have 2 lieutenants that oversee patrol. Those 2 lieutenants in patrol are underwater, and we need more span of control so that we can cover the shifts, the 24/7 shifts. And that would relieve, and then the second position we want in the management area is a police sergeant that would be an administrative / relief sergeant for patrol. So when the other sergeants are off at training, or they call in sick, or they're off on some type of vacation, we have that sergeant. Those two positions would benefit us, because then the rest of the sergeants can go out and be sergeants in the field, which is where we would like them to be, so that they can supervise our officers. The 7 officers positions, we would have 3 detectives that would work a specialized team, a set team. Currently, we do not have anyone dedicated to narcotics or gangs. We're kind of ancillarily trying to do that, but it's just not working. So we'd have a small little force of detectives that would work on that. We would really like to add a homeless liaison officer that would work full-time with homeless and mentally ill, with a clinician in the car from the county behavioral health. And then 1 school resource officer, possibly, well, we're asking for 1 here, but the Menifee School District they're also negotiating to work with us to get 1 and fund 1 for us.
So on the resource officer, does the school district participate in that? Or is that totally the funding of the police department?
This would be the funding of the city of Menifee, and we're trying to get them to, get another one. So that's not up here.
Okay.
That's up to them, and they're still talking in their board.
Okay.
Then we would add 1 patrol officer, which would bring us up to 42 police officers working patrol. We would add 1 investigative specialist, which is a non-sworn professional staff who would work in investigations, and then 1 administrative assistant to help with the administrative part of all that. And then we were going to reclass. We would like to reclass 2 positions. We would like to add a senior community service officer and a senior records technician. That will allow some 2 things. It allows some professional development for those 2 ranks, because otherwise they're stuck in the rank they're at. And it also allows us to have them stand in as a supervisor when their supervisor is not available. We understand this is a big ask, but given we presented the 5-year plan in December to the City Council, and in talking with Armando and Finance, the revenues that have come into the city kind of allow us to get there to where we want to go anyways. And I just think we will provide a lot better service. And these positions, the liaison, the homeless liaison officer and the set team, that will take some of the burden off of patrol, so they can go do more proactive police work. If they get if they have somebody that's homeless or mentally ill and they're dealing with that could take half their shift or even longer if it's a messy call. And so it's just nice to have somebody dedicated to take the relief off. So that's why we've asked for those positions.
So I do like that, before we had a community service officer. Would that be something like the homeless liaison to be like a community service, no, crime prevention is what it was. We had a crime prevention officer. Is that something like the homeless liaison would be?
I don't know what that position was, if that was an R. So what I envision is that, a lot of our issues with the homeless revolve around addiction, theft, some criminality that goes along with their addiction. And then there's a lot of homeless that are mentally ill. And so you really need to specially train that officer and to really focus on those people and help them get out of their addiction and hopefully help them steer them towards help. And that takes a long time. You have to build a relationship. You have to, they would dress differently, they would be trained differently, and they would spend the time. They might spend hours with somebody one day just to build a relationship. And right now, patrol can't do that.
Okay. So do you feel like we're right-sizing the police department to the city of Menifee's needs?
I do.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of excited about this.
Okay.
Before,
All right.
Before we move away from law enforcement, I think Councilman Carwin had it.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, one of the things that I've heard consistently through the city that people are asking for from our PD is more traffic enforcement. And, people would support a substation out in the middle of Hahn and Newport if we could build one right there in the middle of the intersection. So I was wondering if any of these additional positions tie into assisting traffic enforcement, or why specific traffic enforcement officers aren't being requested?
So in the mid-year ask, we asked for 2 additional motors, and we've purchased the motorcycles, and they've shown up. Now we have to train the 2 officers. We've already picked them to work, so that will give us 4 motor officers and a sergeant, so 5. And you know, everybody that works patrol is out working traffic too, but if they're not on calls for service, if that makes sense. So I think when we get those 2 additional motorcycle police officers, you'll see a lot more traffic enforcement. I will say, Han,
Is there a projected date on that?
do you know the date of the training? It's in, so they go to training the end of June, so the end of June you'll see those 2 motors out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, Public Works, street maintenance, pretty much, you know what, Public Works, I know that there's a big need there, and I know that we've been doing reactive instead of proactive work, so I'm good on that one. I was able to let some of the staff know I was gonna ask this and pull this, so I appreciate those, and I apologize for those I wasn't able to get to. But this was really important for me to understand why we needed these additional staff members, so I appreciate your explanation to the council. Thank you. Wendy.
I'm sorry, can I just add one note? I know you asked the chief if he feels this is right-sizing the department, and I just wanted to point out this does not get us to our full 5-year plan. This gets us part of the way there, but we still have some growing to do. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. It wasn't completely right-sized right now, but we're on a good track.
Thank you.
Okay, so on to the reclassifications. The chief jumped ahead a little bit, but staff is requesting 6 positions be reclassified. No questions there? Okay. So on to the general fund. We have estimated revenues, transfers in, and use of funds at $74,835,100, and operating expenditures and capital projects at $74,835,100, which brings us to a operating surplus deficit of 0 or a balanced budget. The total general fund operating revenues exceed the total general fund operating expenditures by almost $1.7 million, with that surplus being allocated towards capital projects. We are, as you see, on the transfer in American Rescue Plan funding of 3.6, that is from that federal funding, and we will talk more about that on future slides. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, the city anticipates receiving a little over $13.2 million in 2 payments, one this fiscal year and one next fiscal year. The allowable uses are as shown: to support public health response, replace public sector revenue loss, water and sewer infrastructure, address negative economic impacts, premium pay for essential workers, and broadband infrastructure. This is put out by the U.S. Treasury, and there's still many unanswered questions about the specifics of these categories. As we find out more about what is specifically allowable, we will bring a complete plan forward to City Council for the use of these funds. Again, another graphic illustrating the balanced budget between revenues and expenditures. This graph shows revenues, transfers in, and use of fund balance in a bar chart, obviously. The property tax, sales tax, including the quality of life measure, and development fee revenues total almost 55.6 million and represent about 74.27% of the total revenues. And just a side note, as you see on here, the quality of life being at 14.7 million and the general fund sales tax at 9.4, And the reason that quality of life sales tax continues to grow at a higher pace than our general sales tax is that 1% is assessed on all online sales that are delivered within the city of Menifee and large purchases outside the city of Menifee.
And the Bradley Byrne wouldn't cover that.
Does not.
Online and car.
Correct. That's just sales within the city of Menifee.
Thank you.
The regular.
So on the online sales, if we didn't have the 1%, where would that go? Where would that funding go?
It wouldn't go anywhere. So right now, it's an additional 1%.
Okay.
So if we didn't
Oh,
have the 1%,
okay.
it would be a lower
Okay.
tax rate.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
The proposed general fund revenue budget represents a little over 6% increase from the adjusted mid-year revenue budget. The adopted budget, as we all remember, was reduced by 5.4 million, I think, when the pandemic happened. And then we came back at mid-year and increased it when we did not realize the losses that we thought we would have.
And just to point out there that we did come in much healthier than we anticipated. Again, HDL, our consultant, gave us the sales tax projections, and you can see on the adopted budget, they reduced them. They were initially about 10 million, I can't remember the exactly, but about 10.1 for the regular sales tax. They reduced it down to 7.9, and we came in much higher than anticipated and weren't as impacted as we all thought and HDL thought. So we came in at mid-year and adjusted our sales tax to 9.2 million, and the actual quality of life was reduced. I believe it was from 13 down to 10, and we ended up coming in even higher than their original projections without COVID at 13 and came in at 14 million.
Which again, truly makes sense with all of the population going to online sales. For the general fund expenditures, the overall proposed expenditure budget increase when compared to the fiscal year 2021 adjusted is about 8.57%. There are some notes there at the bottom. For some of the larger variations, the admin line item that's 15.51% less. The adjusted budget has the 2.5 million transfer for the waste management funds for the capital projects. Community development includes in the adopted budget, or the adjusted budget, I'm sorry, 476,000 for general plan and development code that is not in this upcoming budget. Community services and economic development budgets for 2021 were reduced because of the pandemic, and so they are, again, we're projecting higher for 21-22. And in 2021, the capital projects, capital outlays adjusted budget reflects rollovers of long-term and capital projects. Just another chart of the general fund expenditures not including capital projects. So this is taking out the capital projects portion. You'll see our public safety, fire, police, code, and animal all in one group is about 56.69%. Police and fire on its own is about 53.33%. For the quality of life measure, Measure DD was passed by the voters in November 2016 and again held up in November 2020. The quality of life measure revenues are to be used for increasing public safety, enhancing fire services, and improving infrastructure. The Measure DD Citizens Oversight Committee did review this proposed budget yesterday at their committee meeting, and I'm happy to report that they did approve. They recommend approval of this fiscal year 21-22 proposed budget. The proposed budget, as you see it here, when we take code and police together, they comprise about 45% of the total budget, fire at about 35%, and CIP projects about 20%, for a total budget of $14,949,820. And we are recommending use of the estimated ending fund balance for this year of $173,820. This is just a quick snapshot of the capital projects and capital outlays that we are proposing to use the quality of life to fund. Couple projects at the police headquarters, Holland Road Overpass, Bradley Bridge, some funding for some road equipment. There's also other funds that are funding some of these. Menifee Road, PMP, Holland Road to Newport, and Normandy Road pedestrian improvements.
Wendy, question for you.
Yes.
And I'd asked Rochelle about this, about Station 5. Conceivably, will be under construction this fiscal year with Fire Station 5 in Quail Valley. So I'm just wondering where that budget is being shown.
And I know, I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to email you back. I did go back and look at that last night, and we talked about it. There were multiple funding sources this year in this year's fiscal year budget, so it's allocated from there, and that's why you're not seeing it here, because we're not asking for any additional funding. It's fully funded out of this year from multiple funding sources, including the DIF, and I know we identified a few others.
Measure DD.
Yes, Measure DD.
Measure DD in the current fiscal year is a large portion of it. What
And
was it?
What's that construction budget number? 4.2.
Yeah, so.
That was 4.2. I know that, Carlos, I'm not sure everybody could hear him, 4.2 million.
Measure DD had 2.5 this year, so that'll roll over.
All right, thank you.
So this is a look at revenues and expenditures for the quality of life measure. The large portion of fund balance in the current fiscal year is due to long-term multi-year capital projects and rollovers. We still have the ladder truck in there, which we believe we will be paying out this year, the 1.1 million to the county for that ladder truck. There's Holland Road Overpass and pavement management. The overall increase of revenues for the quality of life is 5.13% and expenditures at 12.85%.
Question, sorry.
Yes.
I know you mentioned the ladder truck coming. Are we anticipating any other engines needing replacement, anything like that?
Margarita, I think we just did the purchase order for the medic truck. But I'm not sure about when that'll be here.
And then how do we deal, just for sake of the public's understanding, how can you explain the engine replacement process? Do you know that? Is there anybody from
I
CAL FIRE here that can talk about that? No?
It is a part of our contract with CAL FIRE. We do pay an additional amount for engine replacements. So as the engines get older and need to be replacement, there's a replacement program that we pay a part of.
Okay, so the engines we never really own, they're like a lease, and then the medic truck and the ladder truck we will own.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Menifee Police Department. So the Menifee Police Department is funded from multiple funding sources. We have a general fund allocation, quality of life allocation. CSA 86 is funding one full officer. And then the SLESF COPS grant is funding some equipment. So the total budget is $23,948,212. The proposed budget will have 78 sworn officers and 24 professional staff. This is a slide we actually added in from the one that went out with the agenda, just to show a comparison between us and Murrieta. Some questions were asked about this. With our new populations for 2021, our total police staffing will be, as it's proposed, 102 bodies, of which 78 would be sworn. And that just shows our square miles compared to theirs, and then their population at 115,000. They have police staff of 154.54 total, with 112 sworn.
Hang on just one second. Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to?
Yeah, I'm back on page 32. Sorry, I'm sending the mayor my request.
32, this one?
Yes.
Okay.
So did you want to mention anything about the increase about Murrieta Dispatch and the increase of employees needed there, from what I understand?
Yes, there is, due to the call volume and workload, there is an increase. And I believe yesterday I mentioned it was 3. I thought it was 3. It's actually 2 dispatchers.
Sorry about that, Rochelle. It's 2 dispatchers, and they're going to add the supervisor, right? 43% of a supervisor.
So 2.5. I guess that's why I was thinking 3. Yes.
All right, and you're going to look into the cost.
I'm sorry. Yes, I was thinking call volume and increased employees. But yes, we are still working through the contract increase. We have meetings upcoming, so that may be adjusted in the future. So this is just the maximum that it could be once we get through our completed with our negotiations with Murrieta.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for adding that comparison page.
This is another look at the top graph here at what was presented in December to City Council. At that time, we had not broken out traffic or investigative hours. We had done traffic, I'm sorry. So on the bottom graph, we are now breaking out investigative hours. We'll actually adding, with the requested bodies, 5 patrol hours, 5.7 traffic hours, and 28 investigative hours. I'm not sure if the chief or Rochelle want to speak to that.
Yeah, we did not include investigation hours before, and we, as we were preparing for this, we realized that was it's a lack of foresight. We really should have been tracking that, so now we are, and we kind of front loaded patrol because our number one priority is to handle 911 calls, but now we're finding that we really need to dig down and do some investigation. So we added those numbers, and if you have any questions.
Councilman Carwin?
Thank you. I know that when we've decided to form the PD, one of the biggest concerns that was being expressed was the cost of pensions, the future costs of the officers, and I don't see that reflected in the budget for police department. Where is that reflected, and how are we handling it?
We actually budget for the in salaries. So in the actual police budget, we did have personnel. Thank you. The $15 million here in personnel does incorporate the actual cost of pension that we pay as we go, that we're billed for. There is an unfunded liability portion that we budget from the administration portion of the budget, the administration department. And unlike a lot of cities who have the unfunded pension liability, it's not due as it's, you don't have to pay as you go. You can defer payment. However, Menifee has a unique opportunity to pay as we go. We pay our annual unfunded liability yearly once we receive that bill. So it actually is budgeted in our administration line. So you don't see that portion here. That covers citywide. But the pensions are for the current employer offset is budgeted in this personnel line.
So just to make sure that I'm clear and the public is clear, the pension liability, the future cost of current officers is included in the budget numbers we've got. It's not something else that's going to come along later on. That's actually today's costs are accounted for in this budget.
Correct.
Thank you.
City Manager?
Councilman Carwin, to add to that, we benefit and are unique because we don't have a pension unfunded liability because we've been making the effort of recommending that we pay it all the time. But if you recall, all of our officers are the ones that we brought in from other cities because we didn't have a safety plan. We couldn't take advantage of the classic CalPERS pension plan that most cities have a problem with. We only have what is called the PEPRA plan, which is the updated plan. So that plan is, the structure of that plan was designed to eliminate the problems of the classic plan. So we don't have the classic plan. Although a lot of our officers came from cities that have they still retain the classic, but moving forward, when they came here, they're going to be subject to PEPRA, which is the better structure for trying to eliminate the future liability element of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So before we move on, down at the bottom in red where we say projected 21, 22, I just wanted to just say that I know these numbers were kind of what we had hoped to do in the next couple of years. We're moving that now because we're able to, and we have the quality of life initiative that lets us do that, and that's what we promised the public, that we would use those dollars for this very purpose. And I know a lot of the council members have said we'd like to make this city one of the safest cities in California, and this is the way we're going to do it. So I'm pleased to see that we're able to do it now.
Yes, if approved, we will, in a 5-year plan, we will be to year 4.5 with the bodies.
And then we'll hold the line for a little while, right? At least that's the plan. Right, Chief?
Depends who you ask.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the projected budget for 2021-22 year for our police department, we're actually reaching our year 23-24 this year.
24, 25, almost.
Yes,
Yeah,
nearly to
kind
our
of in
24,
between
25.
the two.
In between.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Chief, you gotta keep your employees at that rate.
Okay, capital projects, and I know we've already had a couple meetings on the capital projects, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The 21-22 capital projects, with new funding, we have a total of 7 transportation projects, 2 traffic signal projects, 1 street improvement project, 3 pavement management projects, 5 public facility maintenance projects, and 5 parks and trails projects. All of those 23 capital projects receiving new funding, if approved, is almost a $28 million CIP plan. It's a very aggressive capital projects plan, which doesn't even include possible federal funding opportunities that are in the works, from anywhere from $10 million to $15 million. When and if that funding comes through, staff will return to City Council with those awards. Just to go over the reserve fund balance policy. Our fund balance policy was adopted back in 2013, and it established a minimum of a 25% general fund balance reserve, which is equal to approximately 3 months of operating expenditures, with the following reserve balances: an operating stabilization reserve of 10% for catastrophic emergencies, an economic uncertainty reserve of 10% for economic distress, and an unassigned fund balance reserve of 5% designed to protect against the ebbs and flows of our cash flows. And we are estimating that there will be an additional unassigned fund balance at the end of fiscal year 21 or 2021 to a little over 21 million. And these amounts that you see in the brackets there, if this budget is adopted, those adjustments will be made for fiscal year 21-22.
So Wendy, before you move on, that 21,392 is going to come back to us for decisions as far as how we will program that money we will formalize that in the future, or when are we gonna talk about what we do with that surplus?
I mean, there's hopefully always some unassigned fund balance. And as you all know, throughout the year, staff usually brings a number of staff reports to City Council for the use of unassigned fund balance. And that is where it comes from. This is quite a large amount, so I would imagine that the city manager.
Yes, and in addition, we will be reviewing our reserve policy. So that will, Wendy and I are working on that. We'll take it to the finance committee, and then it'll come forward to council with some recommended actions of possibly adjusting our minimum balance reserve and possibly designating some of that unassigned fund balance to future use.
When do you anticipate that coming to us?
So we'll begin working on it in June, and hopefully in June we can take it to the finance committee so that we can bring it back to council in July.
Great, and at that point, council members, be prepared, because we're gonna be being asked to kind of move a slider. How much of it do we wanna put toward reserves, and how much of it we wanna actually program into projects that might help us get to the finish line on some CIP projects and things like that, so. But that's a nice amount of money to be able to and we all want to be able to have a nice reserve there. It'd be great to get to 50%. I know that's been a goal that's been recommended, but at the same time, I know there's people out there that are saying, we want you to deliver, and there's things we want to see get done. So we'll have that decision in the end of June, right?
We will have a recommendation from the finance committee by the end of June to take to council by July.
Excellent,
Yes.
thank you.
I will just say again, that's the estimated.
Okay.
We won't know actual fund balance till probably the end of September, when we're finished closing our books.
All right, thank you, Wendy.
And I'd rather take a conservative approach, make sure we have a reserve instead of a shortage.
But we're at 25%, which was our goal. And now we have the opportunity to go higher than that. So we have a healthy reserve.
Yes.
Question is, do we want to put all of it in and have a very, very healthy reserve, or program those funds? So I think there's a balance, but that's a discussion for when we have that discussion.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, correct. Thank you.
Okay, so a quick look at the citywide budget with all of the different funds that we have. Citywide for fiscal year 21-22, the proposed budget is $122,669,656. The total general fund and quality of life comprise about 61% of that total budget. And this next slide will show you all of the funds with the projected beginning fund balance for July 1st, with the proposed revenues and transfers in that we've already talked about, proposed expenditures and transfers out, and then projected ending fund balance for June 30th, 2022.
Real before you go, Councilman Dynas.
Could you explain the CSAs, how we start with a negative fund balance and then end with a larger negative fund balance?
We are evaluating our county service areas. What we have determined is not all of them. There are some, and I can let Margarita talk to this a little bit more if we need more detail, but they are not sustaining their operations. So we do need to recommend an offset of a general fund, basically a subsidy. But we are, one of the positions that you approved at mid-year was a financial analyst, and we're just about at the end of that recruitment. That position is going to take a deep dive into they're going to be specialized in the special districts and CSAs and come back and make some recommendations and actually audit to see if there are some improvements that we can make out coupled with our public works and engineering departments. But that is the unfortunate state that we're in right now, is that some of the smaller CSAs are not self-sustaining.
Okay, well, I look forward to that discussion then when you come back with the report. Thank
Yes.
you.
Similar question. On the CFDs and LMDs, I presume that's just for the remaining fund balance of 3 million respectively. That's just for repairs and outside unforeseen type things.
For the CFDs, they are for all of the maintenance CFDs that we have formed, and so yes, that is the fund balance. So basically, same thing. We collect each year on for the maintenance piece, but the intent is to build up a reserve for long-term maintenance replacement. So for the street maintenance, the lights and so forth, we do need to build a reserve for the long-time capital replacements that are within those CFDs.
Street maintenance, landscape replacement, things like that.
Right. Okay. Great.
So a budget summary. We have analyzed the current economic conditions. We forecasted revenues. We forecasted expenditures. We prioritized spending. And we strategically plan the use of resources. With the COVID-19 American Rescue Funds helping out, we're going to be able to bring the police department staffing levels to the projection of the 24-25 and reduce response times. We're going to continue to right-size citywide staffing levels in line with city growth to continue to provide citizens and customers with excellent customer service. Provide public works staff with additional heavy equipment to bring more road maintenance abilities in-house and to reduce their response times. We're getting CIP projects shovel-ready to take advantage of grant funding opportunities. And our careful planning is equal to a balanced budget. So just to kind of go over again, the process and the schedule that we've taken with this budget and where we are now. We had our annual budget kickoff meeting on February 29th. City department submittals and review happened during February and March. We had the preliminary budget finalized by May. We had the budget workshop today. We will be bringing the budget for adoption on June 2nd. And then after that, our next steps are to evaluate as we go along our actual revenues expenditures and bring back to council sometime around the time of February 2022 any mid-year adjustments. So with that, I would like to say thank you. Live long and prosper. And if there's any final questions.
I just want to see everyone do that little sign. Great job.
Council members, do we have any feedback or anything we'd like to share?
No, I think it looks great. I think we're on the right track. It's great
Yes.
to see, obviously reserves coming back up and, numbers landing higher than projected. So that's always good. Able to add in PD, and hopefully we can negotiate some of those other little contracts and figure some things out and come out even better.
I just want to credit our administration on the fact that we made it through COVID with increased revenues in order to continue the way we were able to continue providing service to the development applications that were coming through and the city services that were needed, but doing the no-stop shop, using the funding properly, enabled us to maintain our revenues and actually increase revenues during a time where so many cities were just being decimated by the lack of revenue, and that's just preparedness. And I think this budget example, the tremendous detail that went into this and a forethought shows that we are well prepared. I mean, you want to talk about how bad could it get? What kind of disaster could be worse than what we went through with COVID that the city would have to deal with? And I mean, that's about as bad as it gets. And it shows that our level of infrastructure and preparedness helped us weather the storm, so to speak. And I'm really optimistic for the future when it comes to this budget.
Well said, Councilman.
Yes, And I just, I appreciate all the work that all of you have done and answering my questions as well. To be able to have a balanced budget is important, but yet at the same time, we're offering a premier place for our residents to live and get those response times down. So kudos to staff. I am a little, there's just this little red flag that I just see out here that I think over the next year and a half to 2 years, we could possibly see some uncertainty. Who knows, as we do come out in the coronavirus pandemic situation. So just keep being conservative and just appreciate the balanced budget and being able to offer a premier place for our residents to live. That's key. Thank you.
Councilman?
I quickly, thank you, staff. I've spent the midnight hours in my previous career crunching numbers. They all kind of start looking the same after a while, so having come out balanced is great. But I just also want to note that our quality of life, formerly known as Measure DD, that when we had the campaign and the elections, that there was commitment that would use it for public safety, a majority of it, 2/3. And in fact, we're using more than 2/3 of it for our public safety. So we've kept our word on that. Yeah. And as a result, we have more patrol hours, more traffic enforcement coming online. So I think we've met our commitment and look forward to a safer city because of it. Thanks.
Yeah. And I'll just wrap it up by saying well done, everybody. I know you all had a hand in it, but Wendy, thank you for walking us through it today. It was very informative. And so with that, I'm going to say Captain's Log, star date 21/22, requesting commence adjournment. Over and out.